Dan Rubenstein, we talked long and hard about it before we hit the go button today.
Okay.
I believe we settled on a name for this Saturday that's a bit of a zag, if only because it's in a different language, yes?
Yeah, it's Su Casa Saturday, and I don't fully know what it means, but I think there is some sort of very healthy percentage of top 12 or 13 teams who are on the road.
Yeah.
And so when I was going through, first of all, my name is Dan, that's Ty.
Hi.
Right? Is that okay?
Yes,
We
correct.
can still introduce ourselves. When I was going through this, it's in the JMA Wireless Dome, right? Not that Clemson is a top 12 or 13 team at this moment, but what struck me was I think they're the better team, but they're on the road.
Man.
And then I looked at another game. I was like, well, I think they're on the better team, but that's a night game on the road, or it's kicking off at 9 a.m. their body time on the road again. And so I don't know if it's a home field advantage thing. Is Su Casa going to be Mi Casa? And I think
I like this. Look at you.
That's my theme. Whose house will it end up being?
I love this. Su Casa Saturday. It is week 5. Thank you for downloading the show. As Dan mentioned, I am Ty. He is Dan. This is the Solid Verbal. If you have yet to do so, please hit subscribe or follow wherever it is that you find us. We've got all sorts of action that we're going to dive into here momentarily. Of course, we've got a prize giveaway as part of our week 5 pick'em game. We will talk about that in a few short moments as well. And we would encourage everybody who can't make it to this YouTube live stream, as we do every Wednesday at high noon Eastern time, come on back on Saturday at midnight when we do the live recap of all that was in the world of college football week 5. As has been, I think, our normal habit here on Wednesdays, we sort of like to dive right in, not waste anybody's precious time. Are you okay with that, Dan?
I'm great with that, Ty.
Dan, Ty, help. I need picks of the week.
Picks of the week brought to you by Verballers.com. That is our Patreon. That's where you can go and support the show, get ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, watch-alongs, all sorts of bonus perks. You also get access to the week 5 pick'em game. We call it Run the Board.
Yeah.
This week, Dan, a $100 gift card giveaway to
GOAT. Not a sponsor, a former sponsor, actually.
Former sponsor.
Former sponsor, but I've purchased shoes from them after the sponsorship. I think they do a good job. It's a consignment location for cool shoes. So it's a $100 gift card to GOAT if you're a sneakerhead, if you're a burgeoning sneakerhead, or if there's just a pair of shoes that you're like, man, I didn't grab those last year when they came out.
Yep.
I wonder if they have a steal of a deal in a 10.5, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so if they're, whether you're, I don't know, Nike, Adidas, if you wear pony cleats, I don't know. Do they still make pony cleats?
They probably do.
There's a good chance GOAT has them.
I have to check my East Bay magazine to see if I can find them in there.
I'm a big Air Max 1 guy. I love an Air Max 1, so I'm always sort of trolling over there to see if they've got any colors I enjoy from releases past. So yeah, GOAT, GOAT.com. Gift card, $100 there for winning this week's Run the Board, only available at Verballers.com.
Verballers.com. What we do every week on this episode, we list out a couple big dogs. I picked big dogs this week. We've got 5 big dogs. I added one. Didn't even tell you about it,
Oh,
Dan.
my God, Ty.
We will walk through the big dogs here. 5 for 5. Why not? As I think another way to maybe set the stage for what is ahead, we reached out to the vast network of our ballers out there. Here's your week 5 weather forecast.
Weather forecast.
Week 5 weather is here, and I'll tell you, it's looking solid. As we look across the map, regions of delight abound at ACC. The Big Ten, the SEC, they're all going to enjoy a sun-kissed Saturday, no rain around. Now, some regions of concern for you, looking at the state of Florida. UCF could have thunderstorms at game time with Baylor. In Oregon on Friday night, that's going to be a fussy Friday with scattered showers there, and the Big 12 is going to sizzle. Hottest game of the week is a big game. Kansas taking on Texas, 96 degrees at kickoff. Enjoy the games. That's your solid forecast.
So there you go, Dan. With that as sort of the backdrop, shout out Tim Buckley for sending that in. He's going to send them in every Wednesday for us. The Buckman, yeah, just going to give us a hand. Let us know where things stand from a weather standpoint, because it impacts games every week. First big dog in week 5. First big dog troubles me greatly.
Okay.
I put Florida, Georgia, or Florida, Kentucky.
Same thing with what Kentucky's been doing. Come on.
Florida, Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 1.5. This one high noon on ESPN. I talked myself into Kentucky before the start of the season. I really did. And it's fine so far. They're 4-0. The murderer's row here, Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vandy. Not getting much out of that.
No.
Not getting much out of that. Basically, we know nothing about the Cats. Whether or not they're going to hold up against a good team or not. That's all to say that Florida may not be a good team per se, but the defense has been really solid. The offense still sort of figuring itself out. One of the bigger surprises to me this season is that Devin Leary has just sort of been okay. He's got a 59% completion percentage, a 9-to-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Ray Davis, the running back transfer from Vandy, has actually been the bigger transfer success so far this season. Should this be considered a big dog, and where do you come down in this game?
Yeah, I mean, just because of the context of the week, it seems like a bigger game. Certainly after Florida beat Tennessee, Kentucky undefeated, though you mentioned that there's not a ton to take away. I did enjoy that Kentucky jumped out to the lead that they did against Vandy last week because they've had some issues in starting slow. I don't love the picks from Devin Leary. I don't love a lot about this game, which is to say it could be quite competitive. I'm going with Florida here because I still believe Florida running the ball, Florida perhaps getting some stops in concert, in combination, is probably the strongest combination at this moment, just because of the more flaccid way that Kentucky has started out. You heard me.
Oh, my God.
You heard me. We'll get to the Patriot League later.
This is a family show.
So that is what gives me a little bit of pause, where Florida seems to be more tested given the win over Tennessee, given they've been to Utah and lost, mind you, and didn't look good in the process, but they're more tested. And so I trust that a little bit more. And I like, for Florida's sake, that this is an early kick. If this were a 3:30 Eastern, if this were a night game, the crowd's getting into more of a frenzy, tailgating all day. I know Mike Stoops talked about this, that he's not worried that like people are going to be up early and drinking. But I kind of, did you see that quote?
I saw it.
He was like, I trust the good people of Kentucky to pour back some beers when they wake up. I'm paraphrasing here. That is what encourages me a little bit about taking a road dog here in Florida. I think they know themselves better than Kentucky knows themselves. And I get a little bit worried, and I don't love this quarterback matchup because of Devin Leary's picks thus far early on.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it to Florida just because, I don't know, somebody's got to win, and I like a couple of elements of Florida, maybe a touch more than I like what Kentucky has.
Well, you're right to say that we know a lot more about Florida than we do Kentucky. I think that goes without saying. If you are a Patreon subscriber out of forballers.com, last Thursday we spent like 25 odd minutes talking about specifically the Florida offensive footprint and what it looks like, what they're trying to do, what's working, what's not working, and where they needed to try and rectify things moving forward. They're 3-1. They beat Tennessee 2 weeks ago. That was a good win. I was hoping that the game against Charlotte would give us a more resounding win with some new concepts on offense.
Let down look ahead, Tide. Believe in the universe. Believe in the occult.
I know. I bet money and lost on that assumption.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Kentucky at home because I am actually going to follow your rubric. I think they've got the best unit on the field, which is their defense. And I think they still have the better quarterback in this matchup, even though Devin Leary hasn't shown it so far. Maybe we'll see it on Saturday. I expect a potential Dvorak game for you with the punts and the fumbles and the
fair
ugliness, maybe where we're counting punts and not points. Kentucky wins this one 23-17 at home.
23-17. Okay.
Yeah.
I have Florida going 21-19. How about that?
Okay.
Florida winning.
But ugly, right? It's going to be ugly and low scoring.
I think it'll be like 7-3 at halftime, 10-8 at half, something like that. I don't know where we are in terms of my final score being realistic with my halftime score. But yes, low scoring. I don't think either one of these teams scores 30.
You're going to need a palate cleanser after a game like that. Luckily,
there it is.
That was a stubborn dog.
Yeah.
3:30 ABC. It is Kansas at Texas. You're going to dismiss this game, and it's going to piss me off.
I'm going to dismiss it?
You're going to be dismissive about this game.
How so?
You're dismissive of Kansas.
I am dismissive of Kansas a little bit. I like how they took care of business against Illinois, but that hasn't necessarily aged in the most impressive way, with Illinois' season thus far being pretty bad.
I feel like you have been unnecessarily dismissive of Kansas.
What's Kansas's record? 4-0?
Kansas right now is 4-0.
Right. So they separate themselves late from a pretty bad Nevada team. I don't know where the test has been in terms of how we measure Kansas right now.
That's fair.
So to me, what Texas is right now, and I'm not fully saying they're a take care of business type operation, and it's a look ahead spot for Texas, is it not?
It is. Yeah,
they have Red River next week. Yep. Now, they've had dramatic recent history with Kansas. That makes me think it won't necessarily be a look. They're not going to come out sloppy and sludgy and whatever. I need to see something in the way of Kansas this year to believe in. And so if I'm going to say taking care of business is underrated, Ty, and I think you have a sound.
TCB, taking care of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cosmo. I think I'm going with Texas as more battle-tested, more able to keep this offense in front of them. And when you have a line like, what did you say the line was? Somewhere
16 and a half.
16 and a half?
16 and a half, yeah.
I think what wins this game for Texas against the spread is their defense. Like, I don't believe Kansas is going to get to 20 points. And really? I think that's going to help slowly. Maybe it's a crock potting. Maybe it's 17-13 at halftime, something like that. And then all of a sudden it's 41-17.
Oh, you are dismissing them. You set that up like you weren't gonna, but you did it anyway.
It's in Austin. I think Kansas is a good team. They're going to go to a bowl game this year. I think they're going to make incremental progress this year. But where the Texas defense is right now, and the number of ways, the emergence of it's Jonathan Brooks in the backfield for Texas, I think they're just a more complete team. And I think in this part of the Sark cycle, I think they're a taking care of business team. I do.
Kansas got dismantled in this game a year ago.
They
I don't know if you remember. That was the Bijan Robinson game where he went for 240, however many odd yards, and it was 41-0 until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Still, even with that in mind, and with everything that you said is true.
Okay.
Still, I looked at the point spread and I said, Kansas can score 16 and a half, 17 points is a lot. That's a lot when you've got two teams that can score.
Yeah.
So you were also right to point out all of what we don't know about Kansas. Kansas started 3-0 last season. Or this season, excuse me, and last season, right? Last season, they were this year's Colorado, right? They were the biggest story in college football. Game day went there for the Duke game.
That's true.
This year, 4-0. I haven't heard anything about Kansas this year. And if I were a Kansas fan, I was trying to think about this one in the shower. How would I feel about that? Because Kansas is still a great story, but it doesn't feel like enough people are talking about them. I think the fact that Lance Leipold has gotten them to the point where they're 4-0, they're unbeaten, they're going into a big game, and they haven't received nearly the attention as last year, that's a positive sign. That means that you can change the culture. That means that you can change the way people think about your program very, very quickly. It just takes one. It takes one season. It takes some hype. And clearly they did that a year ago. This season, they're at a point where I think they're coming into this game expecting to perform, expecting that they're going to show out and get some revenge of what happened last year.
This is still a Kansas team that can win 8 games.
It is.
I'm pretty high on Kansas. I just think Texas is excellent.
I make this pick at my own peril. As someone who picked Texas to make the playoff, and as someone who knows that this could be a blowout win for Texas.
Okay.
I think Kansas can and will hang in this game. The only way that can happen is if this is a shootout. And I'll save the sound for Saturday night.
Okay.
This is a look-ahead game because Red River's on deck. I worry about the look-aheads, especially against a team that can score and a team that's got it circled because of what happened last year. I think Texas wins. I think this is a game. I think it's 42-35 Texas.
Texas is giving up 35 points to Kansas.
42-35 is my prediction.
What time is kickoff?
3:30 ABC.
Okay. We disagree.
Let's go to another, I don't know, we'll call it head versus heart matchup. 6 p.m. ESPN. It is LSU -2.5. It is on the road at Ole Miss. You and I disagreed over this game, and we didn't even preview it yet. We disagreed over it in Slack when we were setting up this show. You are on Ole Miss. I am on LSU. I contend there is no way Ole Miss is winning this game, but I would love to hear you out first. Give me your thesis for why you like Ole Miss.
Well, this is a Sukasa matchup that I give Ole Miss a certain amount of credit that even after their performance, their woeful performance on offense last week against Alabama, I don't think LSU's defense is Alabama's defense, as we saw in the Arkansas matchup for the Tigers last week. LSU holds on to win a close game against Arkansas. The game, once again, it's in Oxford. Yeah. I still like Lane Kiffin as an aggressive play caller, as an aggressive coach. I don't love this defense, which gives me pause because Jaden Daniels has by and large had an excellent year. We saw them look more complete on offense last week, running the ball, getting it to Brian Thomas more, which I know a lot of LSU fans were hoping for this year. But I think it's going to be the holes and gaps. I think it's last week may have been a situation of Lane Kiffin caring too much, right? Needling Nick Saban early on in the week about Kevin Steele and sort of underestimating what Alabama could do, especially on defense after the USF game. I think things are going to be a little bit realigned, to use a very popular term now, for college football. For Ole Miss here, I think Jackson Dart has a nice game. I think he's a dual threat without the size necessarily of KJ Jefferson, but I think he's a playmaker enough that they're able to win this game at home by, I don't know, 4 or 5 points outright. Yeah.
Here's what I want to know. You did
Please.
the LSU preview at the start of the year.
Yeah.
You did the Ole Miss preview. Of these two teams, where are they relative to your expectations?
Ole Miss is a little bit behind where I thought they'd be. The game against Tulane was close, and that's an impressive win all the same. Even though it was against the backup quarterback, that Tulane was right there late in that game. And Ole Miss, I think it was a turnover late that made the score look a little bit different than what the actual rhythm of the game was. LSU's behind. I thought their defense would be better. I thought they were going to be stronger up front. They've been allowing a lot on the ground, and we'll see game plan wise. You know, they seem to be more pass heavy than expected, given that they have Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss. So I think there could be a steadier diet of him against LSU this week that will help to open things up. So that's my hope for a competitive game, that it's the whole plane is built out of Quinshon Judkins.
I feel like I need a therapist to help me work through these Ole Miss thoughts.
Okay.
I do. There's a lot of emotional baggage there. Ole Miss was my original TCU. I don't know if you recall that.
I do, of course.
Way back when we were younger and full of life, and I didn't have the grays and the sides, as people on YouTube have pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
Every week I pop open our spreadsheets. And every week I feel like I invent reasons to pick Ole Miss in a big game. I did it last week. I took them plus the points.
Night game, right? Night game, Todd Hemingway? Yep.
I did it last week too. You know, Alabama's down. It's Tommy Rees. Maybe Tommy Rees is a double agent. They've got Jalen Milroe. They don't like all these things that I told myself a week ago. None of it mattered. They lost by 14. They barely scored.
Right.
When is the last time we did a recap of Ole Miss in a big game and we were like, oh man, did they overperform expectations? When was the last time that happened?
You want me to look at their schedule? I don't remember the Ole Miss off the top of my head.
I did look.
Okay.
I can't find one. We do this show multiple times a week. We've done it for 15 years running. And there have been moments in there, of course, but just in recent memory, I can't think of a damn time when Ole Miss exceeded expectations in a big game.
Well, Ole Miss beat number 7 at the time, Kentucky, last year, right? Right around this time of year, October 1st.
You're gonna bring Kentucky out here?
They beat A&M on the road last year.
A&M was an 8-4 team, Dan.
I know. 8-4 team. A&M? No, A&M last year did not win 8 games.
Right.
5-7. 205.
Muscle memory, excuse me.
Right. I know they faded, after getting up on LSU last year, and that was like the beginning of the end for Ole Miss last year. Ole Miss reads to me that they're an inconsistent team. And if they're going to score 10 points in disappointing fashion last week, they're going to look sharp this week for whatever reason, and that's what makes them inconsistent.
You're doing it too.
I know. I'm talking myself into it. I am.
I'm just not going to do it anymore. Okay. I'm not going to do it anymore. There's a saying about fool me once, fool me twice. whatever. Like, I'm just not going there with Ole Miss. Every time I do this to myself, I want to pick them. I invent a way to pick them, and then they let me down. So I'm going to pick LSU.
Okay.
I'm going to pick LSU. I don't think the Ole Miss offensive line is that good. And this is the kind of game where I think that shows up. I think that shows up against LSU. That's not to say LSU's defense has been baller. They haven't. But
LSU
I still
only 98th in points per drive allowed.
I know.
And granted, that was a lot of Florida State, but even last week against Arkansas, Hogs pushing them around.
I'm on LSU, and you'll hear more about LSU in the pick segment later.
Okay. Fair enough.
Disagree.
Another
big dog. 7:30 ABC, Notre Dame -5.5 coming off the loss, the home stomach punch, if some have told me on Twitter, nut kick loss to Ohio State at the gun. Squaring off against Duke. This is a big deal for the Duke. He's got game day in town. Under the lights, 2 weeks in a row for Notre Dame, where they're under the lights. They're also under the lights next week against Louisville and the week after against USC. So late night for the Notre Dame fans. You can make your jokes later.
Yeah.
I think what it means for us here, for the purposes of this show, is that you will get a raw, unfettered tie at least the next 3 weeks running.
Mm-hmm.
You and I disagree on this game too.
Yeah.
Why do you like Duke?
I think Duke is a good team. And now, look, they haven't really played anybody since the Clemson matchup, and I like to discount week 1 because week 1 is a little bit all over the place for everyone. I believe that they have a good defense. They've been taking care of business once again, which I believe to be underrated. I'm into quarterback. I'm into defense, and in a letdown spot of letdown spots, provided Notre Dame puts 11 guys on the field, I think it's just an advantageous situation for Duke. I think the energy and electricity will be there. It's still Duke, but I like that combination. I like that situation, and we're still talking about a Marcus Freeman. As good as Sam Hartman is, and I think will continue to be, Sam Hartman throwing into a good defense in a letdown spot with a head coach who is fully able to lose to a less talented team has shown that to be the case.
He has.
I think Duke has a coaching advantage in Mike Elko.
Okay.
And so if you give me home coaching, maybe quarterback is probably a nod to Sam Hartman, though I don't know, Riley Leonard's really good. Defense, I think we have two good defenses. Notre Dame's certainly more talented and I think has a higher ceiling, but there is that home and letdown effect to me. Not that Notre Dame is going to take Duke lightly. Game day's there. It's a big deal, but I don't know. I like the situation and I like the team in that situation. So I'm going Duke here.
I think when you say Riley Leonard, you mean the Riley Leonard who will be on a bullet train to Tuscaloosa as soon as the season is over.
Man, I hope not. I really, really hope not. But look, if Mike Elko leaves, I know his buyout's crazy. Duke seems like one of those places where it'd be tough to keep an excellent player.
One of those trains in Japan that goes like 250 miles an hour on the magnets.
Yeah.
On one of those to Tuscaloosa.
Man, I mean, that'd be awesome. I don't know if you've ever seen the map of like what a potential high-speed rail would look like in the SEC as it expands.
It'd be perfect. That's how they should package it.
As they expand to Norman and Austin, it would be the most incredible experience. Just a bunch of SEC fans getting ripped on trains between Fayetteville and Gainesville or something.
The best.
Just in the way that they're normally quiet cars on trains, there's just a demolish ripped car on that train. That's my dream.
At 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
No, nothing. Zero.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I'm worried about Notre Dame after last week. I'm worried about a sluggish start. I think the first 8 minutes of this game are going to be paramount. And how they look coming out of that loss. I don't know how you can't get off to a sluggish start. That was, again, use whatever characterization you want. The stomach punch, the nut kick, the punch in the teeth. I don't care. It was tough. And I got to believe the players are feeling it as well. And Duke's going to be fired up for this one. I am worried about Riley Leonard. He's obviously very good. Yeah. I'm fully expecting Duke to come out and go on a long, sustained drive where they go up 7-0 in the first quarter. It's just going to happen. That is going to happen in this game. I do think, though, that over the course of 60 minutes, Notre Dame's going to grind them down. And they're going to do it up front in the same way they did with NC State, frankly, in the same way they did with Ohio State. It's going to end up as a similar styled game. It's going to take them a quarter to get that ground game going. Once it does, I think everything else starts working. This is not the Ohio State defense. This is Duke. Duke's a very good defense with a very good coach, but the talent is not the same. So you can move the ball, you can score on Duke, maybe unless you're Clemson. Just had to get that in there. Let's throw that in there. Notre Dame needs to win this game.
Okay.
Notre Dame needs to win this game, and they know it.
Yeah.
I think they bounce back. I think it's 28-17. They beat the Dukies.
Okay. Fair. It's not a terrible pick. The only thing I take exception to is like grinding down Ohio State. Did they score a first half touchdown in that game? Like, they didn't prove much offensively against Ohio State. Fair?
No.
Okay. That's the only.
They proved that. Here's what they proved.
Okay.
They proved that what I have been saying the entire season so far is not BS. That's what they proved. What they proved is this is a team that needs to get the ground game going so that it enables the pass, which is how they've wanted to play all along. It has not been the other way around. Sam Hartman can do that. It can set up the pass. This team is at its best when they get Audric Estime going, except apparently in the biggest moments of the game, which is a conversation from last week. But they need to get that side of things going first and established to open up what I think they want to do offensively. And it just sometimes has taken a while. But when it does, it works. And I think it will work here.
All right. Fair enough. We disagree.
Final big dog.
Mystery dog.
Friday Night Lights, man.
Yeah, this is good. This is a big game.
So look, usually we save these for the end because people listen to this and we don't want it to go stagnant and or stale or, expire. These things have a time limit. And so that's why we put the Thursday and the Friday games last. But this one's big, and we have to talk about it. It's Friday night.
And you get a lot of joy Saturday morning listening to this show, hearing us be wrong with our picks about this.
Why the hell not, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Just skip past it if you're listening to this on Saturday morning, as a lot of people do. 9 p.m. Friday night, FS1. It's Utah at Oregon State. Oregon State's a 3.5-point favorite. Cam Rising reportedly splitting reps in practice with Nate Johnson. Still no word if he'll be back. Like, this is the longest running saga we've had now forever. All I got to say is this. He better not come back and stink. Can you imagine the letdown that would be?
Cut him some slack in Corvallis.
I know, but there's been so much steam on, wait till Cam Rising gets back. What if he gets back and he's just sort of like Nate Johnson or
right? Well, I don't think he's going to be as fast as Nate Johnson, but yeah.
No, he won't. Where are you at with this game?
I'm taking Oregon State. Until I see Cam Rising in uniform look like Cam Rising, I'm going to assume that we don't have Cam Rising for Utah. I don't know when I think their bye week is in a couple of weeks. When is Utah's bye week? It's after this game. So maybe they want to give it to him. I don't know. He's been practicing and not cleared. So it's after this Oregon State game. They get an extra long bye week because it's a Friday night. You said Friday, not Thursday.
Friday night. Yep. The bye is after this week. Then they go to Cal and then USC in week 8.
You know how many offensive touchdowns they scored against UCLA last week? They scored one. Utah scored one offensive touchdown, which I think is incredible because they're undefeated and they have had basically no consistent quarterback play. Iowa gets a lot of criticism, rightfully so. Iowa's scoring 1.62 points per drive. Utah without Cam Rising, 1.6. Utah is slightly worse without Cam Rising than Iowa is with their starter. I don't know if that's a bigger criticism of Iowa or a bigger criticism of Utah. Yes, this is true.
Wow.
And so Utah doesn't have an offense. Andy Ludwig has known for 9 months that, you remember the Baylor game, they were down, 13-3, 10-3 for a chunk of that game. They were in single digits for a chunk of that game. And so if Cam Rising is 50-50, I think Oregon State can score 17 or 20 points at home, raucous atmosphere against a home team, a ranked team. Yeah, I'm going to go with Oregon State here until I see Cam Rising and proof that this Utah offense has life, because once again, they don't have receivers who can change anything. They've won without it, but they've won with Cam Rising. In a Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes type offense, they've been god-awful. Winning, but god-awful on offense. So I'm going with Oregon State here. I think they can win this game 21-13.
I'm going to stick with you because I lost the silly butterfly bet last week. And I took Washington State, or I took Oregon State over Washington State. And you warned me against it. You called me a silly little butterfly.
Yeah.
It turns out I am the silly little butterfly. I'm going to stick with you on all things Pac-12, if that's cool.
That's okay. The thing that gives me grave concern, though, is DJU against what I think is a very, very good defense, especially against the pass.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Because, whatever last week was a good game between Oregon State and Wazoo to some extent. And, we'll talk about that on a different episode. But the game before that, the footnote for us when we did the midnight stream was that DJU didn't look all that good.
No, he didn't. He made 3 to 5 pretty terrible, ill-advised passes.
And so I guess my question is, how confident are we that DJU can go up against this Utah defense? I don't know.
The good news is Deshaun Fenwick, Damian Martinez, this offensive line, Oregon State doesn't win throwing the ball downfield under Jonathan Smith. It can score points doing that. It can generate big plays doing that, but it's all set up in the run game. And so
right. That's true.
Utah's going to stuff Oregon State a lot. I think you need to score 20 points to beat Oregon State. And I don't know if Utah has that capability with Nate Johnson. So
Oregon State for me too. Oregon State for me. Let's agree.
Okay. We agree.
Let's move on to the early window. Early window, you may be put off a little bit that we did not include USC versus Colorado as one of our big dogs, but it's a big point spread.
It's the earliest window for USC.
Yeah, it is a very, very early game. 12 p.m. on Fox, 9 a.m. body clock for USC players.
Yep, 10 a.m. local in Boulder.
USC is -21, -21.5, -22. Depends where you look. On the road at Colorado. I got to believe Fox is licking its chops here again. They get another Colorado game. Speaking of the Jesse Palmer cartoon wolf thing that we called out on the last episode, that is every Fox executive.
Yes, of course.
Knowing that they've got this one. This line actually went down. People have been taking Colorado. I saw 24. I think it broke around 24, something like that earlier in the week. So there's definitely some steam on Colorado in this matchup. Not to say that they're going to win, but perhaps given the body clock situation for USC, perhaps given the fact that USC was too close for comfort, let's say, against Arizona State, perhaps given the fact that Colorado can score. I mean, they at least were scoring until they played Oregon a week ago.
Yeah.
So there's a reason there that I think people would take Colorado. I don't know if I fully buy it, but 3 scores is a lot. That is a lot.
At home, 3 scores.
At home.
So this is USC playing late night in Tempe, coming home late, and then getting to Boulder to play a very early game. It's not a great advantage for USC, this portion of the schedule, as we head into the very difficult back half of the schedule. So Colorado licking its wounds after the loss against Oregon. I think Colorado covers this game because I still think USC's defense is vulnerable enough to give up points, even in a backdoor cover way. USC is just going to score 40-plus points every week. It seems. I don't know if they're going to have a version of last year's game in Corvallis in them this year, just because I think they're that much better. I think they're a little bit deeper on defense. I think they have more ways to spread the ball around this year with the emergence of how they've been running the ball early on against a whole bunch of nobody, of course. But I think Colorado's going to be able to move the ball at home better than they were in Eugene last week against that kind of defense. So I'm going USC to win this one. I don't know, 40-24, 42-24. I don't think they cover. Certainly could get a backdoor once again, but I think Sean Lewis is creative enough in the same way Kenny Dillingham was creative enough last week to sort of manifest points, to play Mike Scioscia small ball, whatever it takes. So I'm going to go with Colorado. Weird body clock at home with the wave of Buffaloes, with Ralphie stomping onto the field. USC is going to get theirs. They're going to walk away comfortably winning this game, but I think there is going to be enough Colorado frenzy to keep it within that number.
Well, that's interesting. I think the point that I would emphasize is that Colorado's defense, Colorado's only defense, may be playing against a bad offense.
Okay.
They are just not good on that side of the ball. And by the way, that's okay.
Right.
They were 1-11 last year. It was the story of the year when they got Deion Sanders. It's been the story of the year thus far.
I think if you just think about Colorado as just like a frisky Pac-12 team. They're just a frisky team with
Who
a good
gives a
home
damn
field
if they're not
advantage.
playing defense? It's still a great story, and good on Deion and good on the program. They are trending in a very, very good direction. I am rooting for them. I've loved Deion Sanders ever since he was a thing when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I'm not rooting actively against
Good thing
Colorado.
you didn't attend his charter school then. Continue.
Well, right.
Oh.
Let me address something else.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter did not play last week. Travis Hunter is not playing this week. Deion said he's not playing. Travis Hunter said he's not taking no for an answer. Deion said, you're still not playing. So he is not going to be part of this game. One thing that I have seen rather prevalently out there on the interwebs is this notion that, well, if Travis Hunter would have played against Oregon, that game would have looked a lot differently.
I didn't see it from anybody that I consider to be a smart college football thinker. So.
Yeah. Like maybe the win should have an asterisk by it because Travis Hunter wasn't.
Didn't see it from anybody I care about.
If Travis Hunter would have been in this game, it would have been 42-13. So stop.
I think if Travis Hunter were in this game, it's 42-6.
I don't think it has any huge impact whatsoever. I just think Colorado is building, and he's a dynamic player. I'd love to see him out there. It sucks that he's hurt, but I don't think it really has that huge of an impact. I think USC is winning this game comfortably. I think they're winning this game. I think they're covering the spread. I think they're going to hammer Colorado because all of these coaches deep down, and Lincoln Riley is no better, all of them have egos the size of Montana. And Lincoln Riley wants to score more points than Dan Lanning.
Okay.
And so, there's a body clock situation, but there's also a Colorado defense situation that's going to give USC ample opportunity to score points to win this one big.
Lock of the week.
52-21.
Okay.
52-21 USC wins in resounding fashion.
Okay. We disagree. This is a second after you said, I just trust you with Pac-12 picks. Okay.
I know. I realized that.
No, it's okay. No, I like that you're standing there. That's good.
12 o'clock ABC. Clemson -7 at Syracuse, man. I've got some crazy Syracuse stats if you're ready for them.
Does it involve Rocky Long's vaunted 3.35?
Well, we'll get there with it.
Dino Babers and his love for all things Rocky Long family tree, and then getting Rocky Long, and now Syracuse being like the number 9 team in the country in terms of points per drive allowed. Is that what the number is? It's something really low like that.
It's nuts.
Really high.
Yeah. So basically the next 3 weeks of the entire season for Syracuse.
Yeah.
They've got Clemson this week. They're at North Carolina, at Florida State over the next 2 weeks. All 3 of those games project as 1-score games. And then they're favored comfortably the rest of the way. By a percentage, just by a percentage calculation, there is a 69% chance that Syracuse finishes with 9 or more wins this season.
I don't buy it, but
I don't either, but just saying. The computers right now like Syracuse. This Clemson game in particular has been a 1-score game the last 2 seasons and 3 of the last 5. To me, it feels like a nightmare scenario for Clemson. Going on the road a week after the home overtime loss against your biggest conference rival, and you're in a weird place. Like the JMA Wireless Dome, the Carrier Dome, it's a weird place to play.
Go to die.
It's a weird place, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's a weird place. So for that reason,
The Yakos, home dog of the week.
Nice.
Cuse is my home dog, man. They're my home dog.
Syracuse is forcing teams to go 3 and out. Now, the best 2 teams they've played, I believe, are Purdue and Army. So
Correct.
They're forcing teams to go 3 and out 44% of the time. That's 8th best in the country. They're preventing big plays. Again, Purdue and Army. Graham Harrell in the option. Basically better than anybody in the country. They are moving the ball. Even when they're not scoring, they're moving the ball. The underlying numbers about Syracuse mostly taking care of business with a difficult place to play, with an improved defense, we think. Connor Wegman throwing into a confusing defense with no real star receivers. I like this pick. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Cuse is without Aronde Gaston, which sucks.
Yeah,
He's
for the
out for the year. That sucks. But I think that's put more emphasis on Garrett Schrader. It has enabled him to morph back into Garrett Shredder, the beloved Garrett Shredder on this show. I can only imagine Dino Babers watching the tape from Riley Leonard against Clemson and saying, maybe we'll just do that. Maybe we'll just do that. We'll do that we have a guy who can do that. He is their leading rusher. He's going to be a threat in this game. I don't think he's quite as good as Riley Leonard, but similar enough in this game. The other thing, and I don't want to get too out over my skis. I have a tendency to do that.
Okay.
But you're right. They played Colgate, Western Michigan, Purdue, and Army. Not exactly a who's who of offenses. Okay.
No.
But you're right. The opponent adjusted numbers on defense are so strong. It is not lost on me, the Rocky Long connection here. Nobody should be surprised if Syracuse takes a jump forward on defense. And it has the early trappings of maybe them doing just that. I've got Syracuse in my home dog. I've got Syracuse outright, baby. Let's get nuts. Let's go 12-0, Syracuse. 29-28. 29-28. Here's what happens. I'm already picking all these games wrong. What difference does it make?
Okay.
29-28. A last-second Garrett Shredder touchdown. Dino says we're at home. We're going for 2 in the win. 29-28. That's how it happens.
And also, if it is close and if it does come down to it, which it very may will, Clemson's kicking game. Now an open question.
Yeah, sure. Okay. A couple other games here that I'll just call out as part of this early block. We got Texas A&M -6.5 against Arkansas. News broke shortly before we hit the go button today that Connor Wegman is done for the year.
Yeah.
Which is a freaking bummer. This is a neutral site game, I should add. It is at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Possible letdown for Arkansas. They had the LSU game last week. Possible look ahead for A&M with Bama on deck. Doesn't really apply, but I'll play
sandwich. I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry.
Oh, boy.
Sort of the double open-faced letdown look ahead sandwich situation. Also, Rocket Sanders still out for Arkansas. A&M is favored by 6.5. You got a quick lean here?
I think Arkansas, just because of the quarterback situation. And also I just like taking points into a bonkers matchup that we seem to get every year.
Yeah.
So I'm taking points with Arkansas, neutral fields. If I were to bet actual money on this game, the Max Johnson factor scares me. I know this A&M offense has taken steps forward, but even in good games, like we've seen recently, they'll just look flat for a half. And so I'm going with the better quarterback on a neutral field. And I don't love the pick, but I like the fight I've seen out of Arkansas. Even with really an offensive line, that's the matchup that probably most worries me. The Arkansas offensive line against Texas A&M up front. But yet, I'm still going Hogs here because I don't know if I have the trust in Max Johnson.
A&M looked better when he came in last week. They look good. And every announcer is going to play up the Max Johnson, Jake Johnson brotherly connection, which is a developing fantasy thing mid-season now. I like Johnson and Johnson. I like A&M 31-21. I'm going to stick with A&M.
A&M here. All right, at AT&T Stadium.
The only other one that I wanted to mention, because sometimes there is weirdness with this game, Big Ten Network, high noon, Penn State -27 at Northwestern. I'm assuming you'll be there tailgating all day, all morning, right?
All day.
Yeah.
All night after the fact, dancing in the streets with the purple wearing cardiac kids. No, I think Penn State, it's kind of a letdown spot for Northwestern. I don't know how many people were expecting them to make that comeback and win that game. But no, this is the type of game where Penn State should be able to go straight at them. I know this game was quite strange last year, like the windiest day of the year in State College. It was like
this game's
day.
Always just there's
What's
always
going
a
on with Pennsylvania weather, just in general. You guys, it's Pennsylvania and Oklahoma.
It's weird.
Seems like very violent all of the time in some direction. And we'll talk to Tim Buckley, I guess, about it.
Yeah.
I think the weather should be quite nice on the North Shore of Chicago this weekend. So I'm going to go Penn State big, like 45-13.
Yeah, I think I agree. Let's get to the afternoon block if we can. Georgia at Auburn. 3:30 CBS, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. We throw out the records in a rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to look at advanced stats. We have to look at those. And I had to look at those a little bit more intently because this line is only 14.5 in favor of Georgia. Now, perhaps a Sukasa situation, perhaps Georgia makes it a Mikasa situation. I don't know. But 14.5, did that line, I don't know. Did that line give you cause for pause?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it did. And I think the line exists where it does because of some of the flashes that Auburn has shown on defense. And the concern, obviously, is what Auburn does when it has the ball. But if you were to take each season independently, once again, as its own living, breathing thing, what exactly has Georgia done this year against a medium profile opponent, a high profile opponent, a decent opponent? They looked pretty odd and off in that first half against South Carolina before overwhelming Spencer Rattler and pulling ahead comfortably in that game. And that's kind of it in terms of what we've seen from Georgia that's been impressive. A half against what is probably an average SEC team.
Right.
And so I think at this point, Auburn might be thrilled to be called average with how they've looked on offense for large stretches of this season. And even still, I really did think about taking Auburn in the points to slow this game down, to have a Georgia offense that has not looked like itself under Mike Bobo. But also, I just think there are too many ways for Georgia to win because I know who's on this team. I still believe in their ceiling.
And that's where I get hung up. I was thinking, do I want to take Carson Beck first big SEC road game in a rivalry?
Right. Yeah, it's a legitimate concern.
But I came back to that as well. I really did. You know what Auburn's post-game win expectancy was in that game against A&M?
What?
0.
Yeah.
It was a meaty goose egg. It was 0. Their defense is solid, and I think you're right. That's the reason for this line. But the offense is in shambles. Peyton Thorne is getting sacked about 1 out of every 9 times he drops back. An extremely interesting stat that you wouldn't expect is also that Georgia is not getting pressure so far this season. I can rattle off that stat.
Well, the second half of that game against South Carolina, they were overwhelming Spencer Rattler.
They were, but
that's one stretch. Yeah.
But that's one stretch, and that's against a really bad line, which they've got here. And I'm curious to see if that trend continues now as they square off against Auburn, because they're going to need to do more of it against better lines the deeper they get into this schedule. And the stats so far are pointing to that's a place where they need to improve. I think they will, but I need to see more than just a half here. They're near the bottom of FBS teams on a per play basis right now. I don't know if it all matters much here. It could against a team like Missouri. It certainly could against Ole Miss, against Tennessee, maybe even Kentucky. But I don't think any of what I'm describing here on the Georgia side is cause for pause, favorite pet charity in this matchup. Right. So I'm going to go Georgia in Carson Beck's first road game. The line is concerning, though. The line to me is a red flag, and it feels like Vegas knows something I don't.
No, I mean, look, if it's a frisky defense at home in a rivalry game, that's generally a spot where I'm just like, take it. Just take those points, right? Especially if it's into the double digits, especially if we don't exactly know what one of the teams is this year in Georgia. But I just have to see a little bit more life from this Auburn offense. So I have it like 34-13, Georgia.
I've got a bunch of quick mentions here.
Okay.
Quick mentions. You can tell me which games are of interest to you, which are not. I think some folks might contend that this is the window of opportunity. If you want me to play it, I can. Debatable. All this stuff is debatable.
Okay.
But if you're going to go out there, be amongst the people, maybe go to junior soccer game, go see Cats, catch a matinee showing on Saturday, this might be the time for you.
Yeah, grab a nap.
Mizzou -13 at Vandy. We've got Michigan -17.5 at Nebraska. That's a big line. We've got Illinois at Purdue. Purdue favored by 1. Indiana at Maryland. Maryland -14. We've got Houston at Texas Tech -8.5 for the Red Raiders. UCF an 11.5 point home favorite against Baylor. Cal a 12.5 point home favorite against Arizona State. Georgia Tech favored by 3 scores over Bowling Green. We've got Boise State and Memphis in a really good game in Memphis. Memphis favored by 3.5 points. And then what figures to be a horrible game on the C-Dub. Virginia on the road at Boston College. The Eagles favored by 3.5 points. Virginia at Boston College -3.5.
You want my thoughts running through these?
I do.
Okay. I like Vandy here at home. I think it's a look-ahead spot, or even a letdown look-ahead spot for Mizzou after last week's win. I think they have LSU coming up.
Correct.
So I think it's a Sukasa situation for the Doors. I think they're able to keep this one reasonably close. I have Michigan covering against Nebraska because it just smells of a defensive score or two, right? Just throwing it into the Michigan secondary. I think it's going to look a lot like what the Rutgers matchup looked like last week. Maybe Nebraska scores early on with Heinrich.
Double H.
This game, Double H. Otherwise, yeah, there's not a lot to like about this Nebraska offense. And to cover an 18-point spread against Michigan, you probably need to score 13 points. And I don't even know if I see that happening. I have Purdue covering against Illinois because they're the home team. I have no other reason, literally no other reason.
We got a message about this. I'm making this one of my picks of the week. I'll make Eric on verballers.com.
I know, I understand.
Eric on verballers.com. Purdue fan Eric on verballers.com has been sending us weekly Purdue updates, and he is passionate about the fact that you do not take Purdue the week after the Wisconsin game.
I understand this. I remember that, and I thought about this. Illinois has been very bad this year. Turnover prone. Defense has been disappointing. I'm just not in on Illinois on the road, and Purdue's got to win one of these, even though I don't like Purdue and I don't like Graham Harrell. I have Indiana covering against Maryland. Indiana, good or bad, keeps it close against
Raven
Maryland.
Taven.
They've been covering spreads this year. We saw them give Ohio State some fight, even though the score doesn't make it seem like they had a lot of offensive fight in that one. But I don't think they started Taven Jackson in that game. That was a Brendan Dorsby game. So I'm going Indiana to keep it relatively close. Maryland wins this one 31-21 or something like that. And the Hoosiers cover. Texas Tech I have covering against Houston. Yeah. I think they're going to be able to run. Tyler Shuck out for the year after the injury he suffered early on against West Virginia.
I cannot catch a break.
I still think they're going to be able to run on Houston, and I'm just out on Houston in this moment.
Yeah,
I like UCF comfortably against Baylor in the bounce house in Orlando, so I'm going I think it's still Timmy McClain for UCF with John Reese Plumlee out longer, but Baylor's shown almost nothing this season.
Baylor might be donezo, man.
Baylor might just be donezo. What has Cal done to earn a 12.5-point spread?
So, full disclosure.
Yeah.
I was looking at putting together our creatively named parlay. And this week, I was initially going to build it around alternate lines with teams in California.
Yeah.
I had in my head the California Love podcast or California Love parlay, not podcast. Maybe the podcast exists. And I got to USC and I got to Fresno. I love Fresno in their game against Nevada. And I was going to go Cal minus. I was going to move that point spread down 5 points. And then I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, do I really want to do that? I have a hard enough time winning that parlay. Do I really want to bet Cal here against Arizona State? Arizona State showed a lot of fight last week against USC. Even with Drew Pine or whoever's playing quarterback, do I really want to do that with Cal? And then I came to the same conclusion as you. Really? 12.5 points? I've been high on Cal, and I'm not that high on Cal. So 12.5 to me feels like maybe not a great play.
Here's the alt take, Ty, because you're saying alt lines here. A big day for alt lines. The alt take is ASU has absolutely deserved being 12.5 point dogs. If you watch the tape on that Fresno game, they lose that game 29-0. Yeah. So ASU has earned it, but I'm going to need to see it from Cal before I feel good about a double-digit favorite in conference for the California Golden Bears. Next one that you mentioned in that window after ASU Cal. I like Georgia Tech big. I like Boston College at home. It's a Tony Muskett game for Virginia, I believe.
Yeah.
I think I like that a little
bit. You're going
bit
against
less.
A guy named Muskett on the Cavaliers.
I'm going against a guy named Muskett because you need a certain amount of bravery. And I like Memphis comfortably against Boise State at home.
Yeah, I like the Vandy play. I think Mizzou is prone to letdowns and look-aheads. I like Michigan. I'm going to go Illinois. I'm going to stand in solidarity with our guy Eric out on forballers.com. I will go Indiana as well. I will take Texas Tech. I like UCF. I will go with Cal minus the number just out of curiosity. I don't know why it's there, but
for S's and G's,
yeah, why not?
Taking Cal.
Georgia Tech big. Let's go Tony Muskett in Virginia. Why not? And
the offensive line, the defense, they keep losing.
I know.
Oh, was that rhetorical? Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go Memphis as well. Let's get to our nightcap. Okay. If we could. Let's do it. Let's go to South Carolina at Tennessee. Tennessee, also 12.5 point favorite. Weird line. It's a weird line to me. Anytime you got 12.5, that's odd. SEC Network. The South Carolina stat profile is amazing. It is an amazing stat profile.
Go
if
on.
I don't say so myself. They are pretty much the least efficient defense in Power 5. They're 129th in the nation at forcing 3 and outs. On offense, they can't block. They can't run. They get sacked 10% of the times they drop back. And still, they beat Mississippi State last week and only lost to Georgia by 10 2 weeks ago. So what that tells me is they're wildly inconsistent in all of the spots that are supposed to matter, but they're balling out for Shane Beamer, and they are building a lot around whatever Spencer Rattler can give them on offense. The interesting thing about Tennessee, we think of Josh Heupel. We think of him airing it out with Hendon Hooker, a couple NFL receivers, blah, blah, blah. This offense this year is geared more around the run with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small and Dylan Sampson. That was not the case last year. They were good at running the football as well. But I think when people thought of Tennessee, they thought of the aerial attack. This year, it is leaning more heavily on the ground game than it is the arm of Joe Milton. And probably rightfully
Even Joe Milton's running. Yeah.
Even Joe Milton's running. Exactly. So that's where they've had more success. I actually think that plays to South Carolina's advantage because South Carolina is not much in the way of a defense either. But of all the things that South Carolina can stop, the rush is mainly among them. That is the main thing that they can
mainly
stop.
among them. Okay.
I don't know. You know how it is.
Yeah, that's true.
You talk yourself into a corner. I've got South Carolina plus the number. Only barely. I got 31-20 Tennessee wins at home.
Yeah, the element that I think you neglected is, so you said South Carolina's had a really tough time protecting Spencer Rattler, right?
Mm-hmm.
The number 1 team in terms of sack rate is Tennessee. I think it's sack rate on standard downs, not necessarily passing downs, but you can verify that, or somebody can verify that for me. Yeah, it is standard down sack rate 12.5% of the time.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Sacks per dropback, 8th in the country, 10%.
That is so bad for South Carolina in this game.
I think that sort of crossover, that Venn diagram, is you staring through the window of a Pennsylvania bakery as those tomato pies are coming out of the oven. Just nose pressed against and getting real steamy. It's just a beautiful matchup. So I have Tennessee winning this game comfortably in Neyland at night.
All right.
So I have them winning by
Cox, man. I'm worried.
Okay.
9 p.m. ESPN, Bama minus 14.5 at Mississippi State. Big game at home for Mississippi State. I think we know a fair amount about their defense at this point because they played 3 top 30 offenses in Arizona, LSU, and South Carolina. South Carolina is playing a pretty good offense right now, despite all of what I just mentioned. In all 3 of those cases, Mississippi State struggled against the pass, but more quietly against a quarterback with wheels.
Yes.
A dude who can run. That, my friends, is Tommy Rees music. Tommy Rees knows how to work with that. So I think you get ready for 100 yards on the ground for Jalen Milroe. That you're going to use more designed runs for Jalen Milroe, not the scrambling, but they're going to actually use that to offset some of their issues in the passing game and get him a little bit more comfortable. Mississippi State in their own right is fascinating, not just on defense, but on the offensive side as well, because the entire narrative in the preseason was, well, we're going to move away from the air raid. We're going to go into more of a balanced offensive set. And they tried that for 3 weeks. And then last week they were like, maybe we'll just let Will Rogers throw it 50 times. They would just, we know that works. Maybe we'll just stick with that. And they were better. They were better last week. I think this is right around the number. I think Bama wins something like 33-17. So I think they cover, but I think it's another week where Mississippi State looks better on offense, even in defeat this time.
Yeah, this is a Sukasa moment for me because all elements point to Alabama in this one winning comfortably. But the fact that it's at night in Starkville, it worries me. The thing that worries me even more, though, is Mississippi State's defense, which is plenty reason for Mississippi State to be considered at or near the bottom of the SEC this year. They're 101st in points allowed per drive. They are fortunate to have a win against an FBS team in Arizona. Otherwise, it would just be Southeast Louisiana as their win. And so I think this is a Mississippi State team that is searching, and it's the right matchup at the right time for Alabama. I have them comfortably winning. I have it 37-17.
Other games here in the night/evening window. Oregon, your Oregon Ducks, 6:30 Eastern on Pac-12 Network, -27 on the road at Stanford. 7 p.m. FS1, we've got Iowa State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by nearly 3 scores, 20 points. 7:30 on Peacock, it is Michigan State at Iowa. Iowa favored, another team favored by 12.5. It's a big number this week.
True.
8 p.m. ACC Network. Oh, God, don't watch this game. Pitt
-2 about
-2.
Michigan State, Iowa. Go on.
No. Pitt -2.5 on the road at Virginia Tech. Which game would you rather watch? Michigan State, Iowa, or Pitt, Virginia Tech?
Oh, Pitt, Virginia Tech.
Really?
I think there's something entertaining about Pitt's offense, even when it's going poorly. I don't think there's anything entertaining about what Michigan State and Iowa are doing, just overall. I do love watching Iowa's defense. It is something to behold, just because why would you try so hard when it's clear that the coaches coaching the other side of the ball are not?
8 p.m. ESPN2 also to close things out here, West Virginia, a 12-point dog on the road at TCU.
Okay. I think Oregon covers because I think it's easy to cover against Stanford if you can move the ball on the ground, and I think they'll be able to. I think Arizona struggled last week. Maybe that was a look-ahead spot, and we'll get there. Arizona-Washington, I believe, is Pac-12 after dark this week.
That's right.
So it may have been a look-ahead spot given Stanford's pretty disappointing results, getting just destroyed by USC and losing to Sac State. I think Oregon, heading into the bye week, I think it's a bye week after, and then they get Washington. I think the big thing is they're going to call off the dogs relatively early against Stanford if they have a big lead. So maybe there is backdoor cover potential, but Stanford's a mess this year, and that's going to continue. I have Iowa State covering against Oklahoma. Sorry, did you want to jump in?
No, please continue.
Iowa State's defense chokes Oklahoma enough to keep this within reason, even though I'm not, and these are your words and your texts to me all week and last weekend, rock hard for Rocco Becht. I'll have to have somebody explain that reference to me. I don't get it, but that's a you thing.
Sure. Rocktober coming up.
Rocktober. I don't think Iowa State's offense will continue to be what it looked like against Oklahoma State, though it is a step in the right direction. Oklahoma wins this one by 10 to 13 points, low scoring. 20-7, 21-10, somewhere in there. I have Iowa beating Michigan State because Iowa still fields the strongest thing in this game, and they can absolutely score 2 touchdowns on defense and even outscore their own offense and win this game 21-7. So I have Iowa there. Pitt, I just think Pitt is better, and I don't even think Pitt is that good than Virginia Tech.
That's mean.
What did I say that you object to, though? That you disagree with?
Nothing.
I just think
I was not rock hard for Rocco Becht. I object to that, but this game, no.
All of these texts, it wouldn't stop coming in last weekend in the
You're going to need to screen cap those to prove it. But
yeah, I've sent them to Mama H for
further analysis,
investigation by the league office. I have TCU over West Virginia just because, I don't know, I think TCU's rounding into form a little bit more, even though they're not bombing it downfield like they did last year.
I agree with that.
I like how they've been running. I like Jared Wiley. It's still a backup quarterback for West Virginia on the road. And so I think it's a nice situational play for TCU at night against the Ears. Otherwise, I mean, I have the list of games in the night window. Nothing else is really jumping out to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Oregon minus whatever. The Oklahoma game's interesting. And, I mean, maybe it's not lost on people who follow Iowa or Iowa State. An interesting battle of dueling half teams right now in the state of Iowa between two offenses that are terrible and two defenses that are top 10. I think Oklahoma should be fine here because Iowa State, I don't think, can score. And I do think the Oklahoma defense is better.
But do you think the Iowa State defense is, I think they're good enough that they just won't lose to anybody by 20.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
What I'm most curious in, it's something that I said on the midnight stream. I am curious to see what Dylan Gabriel looks like against a legitimately good defense a week before the Texas game.
Yeah, in a look-ahead spot.
But I'm inclined to go Oklahoma here, minus the number. I'm with you on Iowa. I think Michigan State's donezo. I'll go Virginia Tech at home. I'm not watching this game. Somebody out on our Discord is going to have to let me know.
Will you
what
put the
happens.
parental controls on your TV so that you don't accidentally flip to it?
I don't even think YouTube wants to let you see this game.
They've turned
I think
it down.
This is a pay-per-view situation.
Yeah,
it should be.
YouTube TV has alerted ESPN that, like, actually, just for this weekend, we're not carrying the ACC network.
Yeah.
We're changing our carriage laws. Okay.
Right. Not a sponsor, could be. And I'm with you on TCU. I like that pick a lot, actually.
Thank you.
And finally, the Pac-12 After Dark window, if we could play it. I don't even know if I have a sound. Let's play this again.
What do I have on my soundboard? Do I have anything that I could hear? How about this? This is seductive. Right? A little bit?
Oh, wow.
Pac-12 After Dark.
Mysterious. 10 p.m. Pac-12 Network. Washington -18 on the road in Tucson against Arizona, Dan.
Yeah.
We've also got Fresno -24.5 against Nevada. Nevada's horrible. I think we'll come back to this one on the Keencast, as we call it, late night, whenever they play the late kick, and we talk up Fresno. So I'm with Fresno. But sooner or later, somebody's going to cover against Washington, right?
Yes.
Sooner or later, it's going to happen. You know, it needs to be a team that can score. Arizona might be the team. I'm going Cats +18. Okay. Washington wins, but Cats +18.
All right. I have Fresno as my lock of the week.
Oh.
Yes.
Lock of the week.
I like that. I like that play.
Nevada is 0-4. They lost by 50 to USC. They lost by 27 to Idaho.
Yeah.
Shout out Vandals, but to
Shout out
Idaho.
Vandals.
They lose reasonably close to Kansas. They lose to Texas State. We might be talking about the worst team in FBS football in Nevada right now. So
yeah,
I'm going Fresno enormous, like 35-7, 42-3, something crazy like that. I have Arizona covering at home against Washington in the desert. I'm just telling you, I root for a Pacific Northwest team. I've rooted for that team with a lot of hype behind it for many years. And the scar tissue I have for the Pacific Northwest, for my own team with hype heading into Tucson is real. Yeah. So it is the clear best quarterback that Washington will play, even though maybe he should have been benched last week against Stanford. I understand all of this. I think it is going to be an electric atmosphere in the desert. I think Washington will comfortably win, but I think this will be enough of a game, as we saw last year. This game, I think, was like within reach for Arizona very late. I'm going to go with Arizona covering the spread, losing, 35-24.
52-38.
I was going to say, I probably shot a little bit too low here.
Yeah.
45-30. 45-31 Washington, but Arizona covers.
Yeah, 52-38 for me. Fresno's one of my picks that we'll get to in the later segment. I like Fresno a lot. I agree. Nevada's bad. Also, some other games here, if we're going to round things out and be complete in our coverage. Friday night, 7 p.m. ESPN, Louisville -3 at NC State. And then later on in the evening, it is Cincinnati -1.5 on the road at BYU. I'll come back to what I said a couple weeks ago. I think NC State is 7th or 8th best team in the ACC. I'm just not into them.
So where's Louisville?
Louisville's 5th or 6th. So they're better. They're better. The defense on NC State's side is okay. The offense is telegraphed. Everybody knows that they're just building it out of Brennan Armstrong. And I'm not crazy about that. I'm not crazy about Louisville, but I do like the matchup. So I'm on the Cardinals there. And I'm on BYU winning the game outright against Cincinnati. Cincy traveling west for a late Friday kick. It's a bad offense going up against a good defense. So give me BYU outright. Give me Louisville minus whatever.
Yeah, I hate taking Louisville on the road Friday night in the ACC against NC State, but I think the matchup is quite nice for the Cardinals, who've been pretty great, mostly on offense. Louisville, we saw them thrash BC last week, who's usually exactly how good of a team as their opponent is. NC State has been god awful at generating bigger plays this year, and Louisville has been bad at preventing them. But I'm going to give that advantage to Louisville. I don't think they're the cure for the common offense. So I think Louisville's balanced enough that they win this game by 10 to 13 points. I have BYU over Cincinnati. Altitude, great by me. Take the team that I think BYU is solid. I haven't watched a ton of them, but what I have seen from them, I'm okay with them. And I think Cincinnati and what I've watched of them, I'm just not there with the Cats this year.
I'm not there with the Cats. I'm not fully there on Keaton Slovis for BYU. However, the defense is legit. It is a good defense. And, they beat Arkansas. This is a good team. This is a decent team. This is probably a better team than I gave them credit for in the preseason.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's all we got, man. That is all we got. It's week 5. That is Sukasa Saturday.
Is there not Patriot League matchups? I'm looking at this document and I'm seeing, I just have a request. If you can drop that big, stanky, pulsating, vibrating.
1 p.m. Lehigh at Monmouth. Playing this game at Kessler Stadium, West Long Branch, New Jersey. Dan Rubenstein, who you got?
I've been to Long Branch, enjoyed Long Branch. I'm going with Monmouth here over Lehigh.
What'd you do in Long Branch?
I stayed with Jody with an eye, and when we just had one little guy, we stayed on the Jersey Shore. It was great.
I'm going Monmouth.
Great weather, had great pizza.
It's going to be 71 and cloudy on Saturday, 1 p.m. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus. Fordham at Georgetown. Going to multi-sport field, Dan. Fordham's 3-1, Georgetown 2-2. Sort of the game of the week in the Patriot League.
Yeah, give me the Rams here. Give me the Rams big here. As much as I believe in multi-sport field and the Hornets' Nest that it is, the Rams travel. They bring that crowd.
I always go Georgetown, multi-sport field.
Fair enough.
Auto pick. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus. Colgate 0-4. Cornell 2-0. Big Red.
Oh, Big Red. Yeah, I'm going with Cornell here.
Shoalcliff Cop Field in Ithaca.
Shellcop?
Sure. Yeah.
66 degrees, and I think that gives the advantage to Cornell. They love playing when it's brisk out, Ty. So give me Big Red.
That Big Red Bear, man.
Yeah, love it.
3:30 ESPN Plus. Bucknell, the Nellies, coming down here to Lafayette, squaring off against the Yetis, Fisher Stadium. 7-3 degrees per AccuWeather.
7-3?
7-3. I got caught up again on my words. Who you got?
Lafayette by 40 to 50 points. You know how I roll.
Yeah, I'm not a Nelly. Finally, 5 p.m. Harvard against Holy Cross. Dan, Battle of the Northeast. Who you got?
Worcester Mass. I have Holy Cross here. A tough matchup in the Crimson, but I'm going Holy Cross.
I think I'm with you. I think I'm going to go Crusaders here.
Yeah, go Crusaders.
Ty versus the world.
Steve, le monde, el mundo, Sekai, Fiat. Ty versus the world.
Presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
It's been a demoralizing season of picking games, Dan.
I'm sorry to hear it, Ty. I really am.
But I'm getting back on the horse in week 5, Sukasa Saturday. I got 5 picks here.
I'm ready.
And then I've got a parlay.
Jeez.
Pushing all the chips in the middle. I already called out USC minus whatever. They're my lock of the week. I've got Syracuse in here, home dog of the week, Syracuse +7. I've got LSU -2.5, minus whatever, because you know my thesis on all things Ole Miss falling
trust
short.
Ole Miss. Yeah.
I've got Illinois +1 on the advice of Verballer Eric, who sends us the deep Purdue knowledge, saying do not pick Purdue. I'm not picking Purdue. I'm going to pick Illinois outright. And then I got Fresno -24.5, your lock of the week. So I'm borrowing from you, borrowing from the Verballer hood as well. And then I've got something that we're calling the alt-rock parlay this week. The alt-rock parlay. I've got 5 games, which is like +8 or 900, about 8 or 9 to 1.
Jeez. Okay.
If we're not going to hit it anyway, let's just go nuts, man. Let's do it. Alternate spreads grouped together to give you optimal benefit, right? Oregon -21.5, pulling that line down. Alabama -10, pulling that line down. Notre Dame -2.5, pulling that one down. USC pulling the line way down. USC -17 against Colorado. And finally, LSU -1. Grouped together. That's your alt-rock parlay.
What's the number right now? The plus number?
873.
Woo! Ty, trying to make people wealthy. Stringing them together.
Football is more fun when you're in on the action. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Sign up with the code SOLID. SOLID, SOLID. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, Dan. only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Use the code SOLID. The crown is yours, Dan Rubenstein.
What are you eating this weekend? Any plans? You grilling? You bringing in?
You were trying to get me to come
omelets?
out there and eat pizza.
I know. I was going to make you pizza, Ty. I've got the dough Friday night. Come in for Penn State Northwestern. Take you around.
I don't think I can do it.
Tailgate. Show off a celebrity, a Penn State celebrity.
A Penn State celebrity. What should I eat?
What should you eat?
What should I eat?
Which meal is most important to you? You want a Saturday breakfast to kick things off right? You want lunch as the game start and you're watching USC-Colorado? Dinner?
I'm thinking dinner. I need something that is going to be heavy enough in the belly to power me through those night games, but not put me to sleep. That's the key. It can't put me to sleep because we got to go live at midnight.
What about a plate of enchiladas? Chicken enchiladas, cheese enchiladas. Too heavy?
It might be a little too heavy, yeah.
I don't think it's just ditch the rice and beans. I think you're good. They travel reasonably well because I love when the cheese congeals. You know what I'm talking about? Just a touch rubbery. That's good enchilada loving. I like that. Congeal.
Very good. Well, look, come back by all means on Saturday night at midnight.
Yeah.
Out on the YouTube channel. You can go to solidverballive.com or just youtube.com/ @solidverbal. That'll get you over to the live stream. Give us a call on the reverb line at 855-VERBAL-3. Let us know your thoughts on all things week 5 as it transpires. Do go on out to verballers.com. We want you to get in on the week 5 pick'em game to play for that $100 gift card to GOAT. Buy yourself some cool kicks. And of course, make sure you follow along on social media throughout all that week 5 has to offer. We'll be tweeting, we'll be posting fun clips, we'll be doing all the things we're supposed to do as America's college football podcast. Dan.
That's all I have.
For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks for downloading, listening, supporting the stream. We will talk to you all soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.